Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable. I'm Niu Honglin, joined by Steve and Yushan. Coming up soon, World Book Day falls on April 23rd. And here in China, it is a week-long reading celebration. Roundtable shares that spirit, so we're spending the week as well with 5 renowned Chinese writers, each sharing a book that they'd like to recommend to our dear listeners. And a new survey shows that nearly 2/3 of Americans now see engagement rings as a financial burden. At the same time, millions are still spending thousands, mostly to meet expectations shaped by tradition, social media, and decades of marketing, not entirely themselves. So, do you think it's an iconic symbol of commitment or an unnecessary financial burden of modern relationships? Let's talk about it. But before that, in a world of short videos and endless scrolling, reading has become almost intentional, a choice that you make rather than a habit you fall into, which is what makes moments like World Book Day feel a little different now. Not just a celebration of literature, but a reminder of attention, of what it means to stay with a story, to follow someone else's thoughts all the way through. And today, we're bringing that experience a little closer through the voices of writers themselves. So, here at Roundtable, we're marking the occasion by inviting 5 leading Chinese writers to share a book, either one of their own or one that's left a lasting impression on them. And this segment is brought to you in collaboration with Apple Podcasts, with support from the International Liaison Department of the China Writers Association. This series brings together voices, stories, and ideas across borders. And for today, we have a book that is, well, a writer and a book and something we get to discuss as adult, but also maybe for child as well.
Yeah, yesterday, we kind of dived deep into the wild science fiction and also the concerns of what sci-fi world could mean for us in the future. But today, I kind of want to drag that imagination a bit more grounded to the feeling that feels especially rare in today's world, which is the quiet and the healing and the soft power of tenderness and genuine friendship between an adult and a child. The book that I'm recommending today is 亲爱的蜂蜜, Dear Fengmi, a novel by writer Di An, published back in 2022. For many readers, I believe Di An is a name that's really hard to overlook because even though many of us who born or grew up in the post-80s or post-90s time period, we probably, not all of us have read her work, but we all have heard about her name in the genre of, I think it's called youth literature, and also the description of
everything.
Fierce love and passion and the really human side of the world. So let's take a moment to introduce the writer just a little bit. So Dian, she was born in 1983 in Taiyuan, also Honglin, your hometown too, right? In central China's Shanxi province. So she actually comes from a literary family. That I didn't know before I started researching a bit on her background. Apparently, both of her parents are writers themselves, so she grew up under the influence, but doesn't really turn out to be an old-fashioned heavy kind of writer herself, but rather she took education from a school in university in Paris with a degree in sociology. And she brings that, and also her personal observation of human emotion with the touch of sociology, combined with a deeply compassionate way into her style of writing. I've never read about this trilogy before, but this is one of her biggest hits, The Memory in the City of Dragons, the trilogy known to be Xijue, Dongni, and Nanyin. So those novels, with their piercing exploration of family dynamics and the lasting imprint of one's upbringing, really helped her move far beyond the usual boundaries of youth fiction that she was traditionally well known for. So she is, as we kind of open up the scroll for this whole genre and style that Dian is portraying gets to give us a whole fuller picture of what Dian is really like, which is very dynamic in my opinion.
And by the way, the city of Dragon refers to the city Taiyuan, which is the provincial capital of Shanxi
that's
province.
why.
That's why, yes.
Is she famous? I mean, she's known around the country, but in your town particularly, is she kind of a star because she became so well known around the country?
Kinda. I think it still depends on the target audience because she has been, like you said, a star among the younger audience and readers for a while, and then she moves on to. When I said she writes about everything, it's because as a writer she definitely touches upon a lot of different genres, and she has been good. And her work, because in I don't know, as a very relatively superficial reader, I like to categorize writers in the sense that, oh, this is a sci-fi writer, or this is a writer that writes the kind of novel that are love stories.
Yeah.
But in fact, a lot of writers, especially the writers we present here on Roundtable, they are quite talented in all different genres, and it's the same kind of writer. Dian is one of those writers.
She's still very young. She was born in 1983, but she did something really impressive in her younger years. In 2005, she had a book called Jing Hung Street, and she won the People's Literature Award for Best Novel, and that's a very prestigious award here. And when she won that in 2005, that made her the first writer from the post-80s generation to receive that honor. Really, really young, and won the People's Literature Award for Best Novel. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think that's also why a lot of us have heard about her. It's not only because of her work and the popularity of it, but also just the fact that she hit the mark of being the youngest post-80s writer to have won this award. Because you're right, Steve.
22 years old.
Yeah, that's a very important and kind of heavy-weighted award in the world of Chinese literature. And also, here in China, Dian is quite well known, but one of her work is called 告别天堂. It has been translated into, I think in English, it's in the English translation is called Ashes to Ashes, and it's been kind of introduced to overseas libraries and scholars too, and have been receiving kind of a very touching and also heartwarming kind of comments from the global society as well.
People outside of China look at that work in particular as kind of a case study, if you will, of the psychological landscape of today's youthful Chinese.
And I cannot wait to hear what she's recommending today.
大家好，我是迪安。我今天呢，给大家推荐的是。
Hello everyone, I'm Dian. Today I'd like to recommend one of my own novels and also one of my more recent works, Dear Fengmi. Among all my full-length novels, this one is quite special because its protagonist is a 3-year-old girl. The other main characters are her mother and her mother's boyfriend, who's also the male lead of the story, Xiong. Although the novel may seem to tell the love story of a couple in their 30s, the real focus of the narrative is the friendship between Xiong and his new girlfriend's daughter, Fengmi, literally meaning honey in Chinese. Xiong is a 36-year-old accountant in Beijing. When he meets Cui Lianyi, he also gets to know her daughter, Fengmi. Through his interactions with her, he gradually finds himself, as an adult, being guided by a child to revisit his own childhood. In the process, an adult and a child come to form a genuine friendship. This novel has a happy ending, and what I really wanted to explore is how an adult, through a child's way of seeing the world, begins to retrace their own life and reconnect with their inner self. Very often, it's the children who teach us so much, especially how to face ourselves honestly. I believe this is a simple story, and I'd like to recommend it to you. I invite you to get to know our young protagonist, Miss Chen Fengmi. If you choose to read this book, I hope it offers you a light and heartwarming journey. Thank you.
I'm quite surprised because her other work, but I think I'm surprised and not surprised in the sense that we talked about she can write about almost anything,
Yeah.
different styles, because the trilogy we mentioned is not the same style. It's quite intense. The emotion is very deep and profound, and you are impressed by the struggle of different characters in the book. But for this one, I think it's quite tender and sweet, and it discusses the kind of emotion you have, the subtle ones, the very nuanced ones you started to have when you are facing a little girl, a little child, and through that child to see yourself in a certain way.
This is also set not that long ago. So it's between 2018 and 2021. So it's against the backdrop of the pandemic, right? So this is for readers. It's a time that's relatable for people. So people can remember how much of a struggle that was, the difficulties that came with just daily life during that time. So there's something else that people can kind of find themselves a little bit into.
Yes. And Yushan, I'm curious, what is the part that touches you the most?
I think in general, the focus of her narrative in Dear Fengmi is not about love story, although it might turn out to be a love story, a romance story between what she mentioned, the Xiong, this 36-year-old accountant in Beijing, and also a lady, a single mom named Cui Lianyi, and as well as her daughter, a three-year-old daughter, Fengmi. But at its core, as strengthened by Diane herself, she wants to focus on really about how adults are being healed from the interactions with a child and looking at the world through the lenses of a child. I think this has something to do with her own personal experience as well, because after Diane herself became a mother, the experience kind of opened up for her, as she mentioned with previous interviews in the past few years, that an entirely new way of looking at the world and observing her daughter's interaction with her kind of just inspired her and make her want to keep a good track of all the cute and heartwarming little moments she has with her own girl and put that into a character as we read about it now. And really, it's she kind of turned that lens from the mom's side to the leading ladies' roles, boyfriend's angle too, which is the Xiong character, the leading male character. So he, instead of the mom, forms a very unique but also genuine kind of bond, friendship between himself and the girl. And by interacting with the girl, he realized just how much we've overlooked alongside of our own journey growing up as an adult. There's one point where Xiong Mobei, that's the name of the leading male character, is eating ice cream with Fengmi. And he asked her, why does ice cream melt? So usually as an adult, we'll say, oh, it's because it's too hot. You know, physically, that's what happened with ice cream when they melt. But Fengmi says, because it wants to turn into a milkshake. I think that resonates with me so well, because when I was a kid, I always thought, well, different from Fengmi, I thought it's because I can have both ice cream at the beginning and then milkshake afterwards. It's like I pay one to get two. But still, it's really a cute reflection of a simple and direct question that we sometimes overlook on the fun part.
It reminds you of the perspective you used to have, but has lost for a really long time.
Yeah.
And that is the book, Dear Fengmi, from Dian, book of today. This segment was brought to you in collaboration with Apple Podcasts. We also love to hear from you. What's a book you've been enjoying lately? You can share your picks at roundtablepodcast@qq.com and discover more from Roundtable China on Apple Podcasts. You're listening to Roundtable. Coming up next, does diamond still mean love for eternity to you? Let's discuss.
Looking for passion? How about fiery debate? Want to hear about current events in China from different perspectives? Then tune in to Roundtable, where East meets West and understanding is the goal.
This is Roundtable with me, Steve Hatherley, and Yushan. They say diamonds are forever, but in 2026, it seems that the debt from those diamonds might just be as permanent. A new study has revealed a change in how Americans view the tradition of engagement rings. For decades, the Western rule of thumb was 3 months' salary, but today, 2/3 of Americans agree that these rings have become a significant financial burden. With inflation rising and the wedding tax, quote unquote, hitting harder than ever, many couples are questioning if a sparkling stone is really worth a delayed down payment on a house.
They did this study early this year in February. It was done by Talker Research. So they asked people online, they asked a bunch of survey questions, and they asked a bunch of different age groups as well. It was done across 4 different generations, 500 people from Gen Z, 500 millennials, 500 Gen X, and 500 baby boomers. Now, the caveat here is everyone they asked was either in a serious relationship, engaged, or already married. So that might have a bit of an influence on how people viewed the diamond ring. But regardless, let's go over what they found. 64% of those asked believe that engagement rings have officially become a financial burden. And that result was true against all different age groups. And that kind of suggests that the traditional pressure to spend big is clashing with modern economic realities. You mentioned it in the opening, the 3-month salary. Were you aware of that? Do you know about that?
Not here in China, I think, at least.
Yeah, it's this dumb concept that was created from a marketing campaign, which they call the most successful marketing campaign in history, by the way, that you're supposed to spend 3 months of your salary on an engagement ring. And for decades and decades, people kind of just believed it. And they thought, well, if I'm doing my job as the person who is buying that engagement ring, anything less is kind of disrespectful to the person that
less
you're
of expectations,
right? Because society all of a sudden had these big expectations, but now times are changing, and there's a big disconnect between what people think they should spend and what they actually spend. Here's a couple of more statistics. 45% of respondents, they do believe that an engagement ring should cost less than $2,000, but the reality is often much higher. 18% of people admit that they spent more than they could actually afford just to meet those societal expectations.
Ooh. Well, I think I can think of a kind of a similar item in Chinese weddings, in Chinese marriage. That is, I think in my parents' generation, it's the kind of major furniture or household appliances that your family is supposed to have because you need them for family life in the future, like a bicycle,
a TV set.
And also at a certain, if even earlier than that, it might be a sewing machine, something like that.
A laundry machine, if the idea already
later
existed.
would be laundry machine, but it's kind of like household appliances, much more practical. And later on, there's the idea of dowry and the bride price and a gift, something like that. But that is like from both families, from the bridesmaid and the bride and the groom. And the idea of having something as accessory. Here in China, we prefer gold accessories.
I was just about to say,
Which,
instead of diamonds, we prefer gold rings or gold bracelets, stuff like that.
Which is financially smarter in a way because the price is relatively more
stable.
Stable. But diamond ring has been a thing for certain families or certain couples when you're proposing.
So that aspect of like diamonds for proposal, it did make its way to China a little bit, but it sounds like not too much.
Because we have heard of the idea of diamond is very hard, is very stable.
It lasts forever.
It lasts forever. It's for eternity.
Diamonds
it represents...
Diamonds are a girl's best friend. That was a big advertisement campaign as well.
It's made into songs too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my feeling is that it has never got to the same level of significance in Chinese society.
Well, good good for you. I never believed it in the first place, as a matter of fact. But, the pressure that people feel to spend a lot of money on their diamond rings is still felt. And it's partly due to Western culture, too. Many buyers, this is from the survey, said that they feel like they're in an arms race of sorts with their friends and with their family because they see other people post on social media these really large diamond rings like, oh, I got engaged. And it's this giant rock on their hand. And that leads to this psychological benchmark where anything smaller feels inadequate or disrespectful or like you're not meeting expectations regardless of how much money you have in your bank account.
Question. If that beautiful sparkling diamond is lab grown, is that making a difference? Because I have a one with the size of my fist.
A lab-grown one?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's very cheap,
Sounds
by
like
the way.
The Hope Diamond.
It's funny.
Yeah. Well, I think if you had asked that question maybe in the early 2000s or late 1990s, cubic zirconium, I think is the name of that. I think you would have heard the answer, no way. That's a cheap replica. Nobody wants that.
Oh.
But that is changing too. These lab-grown diamonds are, and by the way, these are chemically identical to the diamonds that come out of the earth, but they're a whole lot less in terms of their cost. And the attitudes toward them, 52% of Gen Z, again, this is from the survey, Gen Z and millennials, they said that they would prefer a larger lab-grown stone to a smaller mined one for the same price.
The size of your fist.
Yeah, but they still want
that one is too fake.
They still want the big one. They still want a bigger one. But the diamond requirement, if we can call it that, it's slowly fading away. 28% of people said that they have interest in alternative stones, and the choices are often viewed as, yes, more unique, maybe more personal, but also being better for the planet and ethically better too.
Yeah, because the mining of diamond can involve in a lot of different issues, and also I think it reminds me of a game I used to play a lot on my phone called Sims. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. It's a real simulation of human society where you can create a character and make them fall in love. And I remember each time upon the engagement session, the more Sims money you spend, the more likelier the being proposed party is going to say yes to the one who's proposing. And I had to get my little Sims married one by one because I don't have enough Sims money for that. And I can't believe how deeply that's rooted, even in games played by children, I'm sure.
I have to admit that it has been a concept that's shared by a lot of people, or at least an entire generation, even here in China. But do you know, I have to go back to my fist-sized diamond. Do you know where I get it? I get it from an online shop in Henan province. And Henan province now is the most important hubs for lab-grown diamonds, especially across the super hard materials and cultivated diamond supply chain. And the public data shows that Henan accounts for about 80% of China's artificial diamond output.
Oh, cool.
And in 2025, it has also registered 40% of the global market as well. So I guess because, like you said, chemically it's identical and you see the sparkle, you see the beauty of the diamond, regardless of whether or not you believe that the natural ones are much, much better than the lab-grown ones. On social media, you cannot really tell the difference. And diamond is also a very important, important material in scientific research. You use it as part of certain equipment. And with all that, the artificial diamond or lab-grown diamond in the Chinese market is also doing a lot of really good marketing campaign by collaborating with different types of really cool Chinese brands and also international brands like Hello Kitty, Disney, all these different brands, and allowing people to have the kind of accessory they enjoy, the very fashionable ones, with diamond as one of the elements.
That marketing campaign, I think, goes back to the 1940s or 50s or 60s or something like that, and it created this whole cultural thing that has existed for, I don't know, we're headed towards 100 years eventually. But it's cool in China. It sounds like your expectations for a proposal are far more practical than those in the West. I mean, I've always felt like this, even since I was young. A diamond, what? It's just a stone. It just comes from
It's a really,
earth.
really hard stone.
It is, yeah, but it's just something that you can find in the earth. Why do people get so caught up in all of it?
Yeah, and the meaning is just man-given. You can give meaning to many things and don't have to.
It's a construct, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have to ask this. I think I know the answer, but this little survey on Roundtable today is that because Yushan, I know you do not have a marriage just yet. So in the future, would you want a diamond for your wedding?
I would rather inherit an old ring from my mom, if that's a good answer.
Steve, did you have a diamond for your wedding?
The ring on my finger is from Thailand. My wife has the same one, and they cost $17.
Ooh,
Lovely.
my diamond.
And she didn't divorce me yet.
And that is the result from Roundtable's diamond-related survey. I'm Niu Honglin with Steve and Yushan. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.